Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, you're doing great, thank you.
Good.
All right, we're good to go. I believe it does. It makes a beeping noise. There you go. Great. All right, we'll give it one more minute and we'll get going here. Hey, Ted.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're good. Okay, I think there's more people to the right. Is that correct that I can't see?
You are correct.
All right, perfect. Hey, Josh. All right, very good. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Great to see all of you. Hope this is coming through pretty clear for you. As always, we have a bunch of folks live, and we always find that more people watch it on being recorded and watch it over the next few days, which is just fantastic. So whatever, we're glad everyone can make it live, but whatever format works is certainly good with us, and we're glad we're able to provide this content in a way that works for everybody. So wanted to say hi real quick, and before we get started, does anybody have any cool, exciting news to share? Any recent wins? Any speeches landed? Any great performances? Anyone get any new video? Anything exciting going on out there?
I'll jump in, Jordan. Two things that have that you guys have taught me that's working very well is doing a weekly segment and educational piece on for my topic, which is spectacular service. Each week, uploading a video of some spectacular service that I've seen, received, or somebody sent in via my website, which has really been helping me develop some different frameworks and some different stories when I go out. And then also, maybe a misconception on my part, didn't realize that nonprofit organizations pay for keynote speakers. So that was a big win for me in Idaho. Two things that I wasn't expecting at all. So a win in Idaho, and the weekly videos are going well thanks to your guys' coaching. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear, Scotty. I will tell you that I've had that experience also with nonprofit organizations. A lot of times you think of a nonprofit organization, you think of someone, an organization that's just a pure charity. And sometimes it makes sense there too. I mean, we've been paid for certain things when we weren't able to do them for free, or it wasn't a cause we were super passionate about. But a lot of times a nonprofit organization can be, a university that is obviously well-funded, or an insurance company. I mean, Blue Cross Blue Shield, all the different ones throughout the country are all nonprofits, right? And they're obviously make plenty of money and do just fine. So that's always a good thing to remember, not to just necessarily react to, hey, it's a nonprofit, I don't know if we should go ahead and pursue this, or to go ahead and ask some questions and find out. And so it's a balance. We do a lot of nonprofit stuff at a discount because it's a win for them and it's a win for us, and it's a good cause, and yeah, it's great. Anything else anybody would like to share? Hi, Lila. How are you?
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to share something today. There we go. Called the Speaker Bureau Outreach Do's and Don'ts. So we put together a list of all the things we think are a good idea to do when you're trying to build relationships with speakers bureaus, and then also things that we've seen people do that we think are a bad idea, that either harm the relationship or don't allow it to take off, or set things off on the wrong foot. I know as part of what we do with so many different clients is share about our relationships that we've built over time with speaker bureaus. And all the time we're getting questions, how do we do that? How do we get in with these folks? How do we build them more quickly? How do we build deep relationships that we can turn into real clients and monetize them over time? And it's not always a very straightforward thing. So we put together this list. I'm going to share it with everybody now, and we can certainly answer any questions and talk about it as well. So first, going back and forth, first on a do, make sure your outreach is personalized. So this is a really big one. So many times we see people, and we've made the mistake also, we see people go ahead and send an email to a bureau, kind of introducing themselves, but it's just a template, generic sort of introduction. There's nothing personal in there. There's no anecdote about a time that a speaker in the Bureau may have met. No one's even gone so far as to look the person up on LinkedIn or on Facebook and try and do a Google search and try and figure out what interests they are. Maybe they like a certain sport and you like that sport, or you like a rival team, or you have a certain passion. Maybe they're into music and you're into music and you play an instrument. Whatever it is, try and find that one thing, just like you would do with any relationship that you're building, and throw that out there to see if there's a potential personal connection. Perhaps they saw a play on Broadway in the last 3 years and you saw the same play and they made some commentary about it, and you can share your thoughts and build a relationship that way. So super, super important to share mutual interests, super important to make sure it's customized. This is kind of the opposite of that one. Don't send a template email that's not customized. Really the same thing. Just make sure you're not copying and pasting. We see that so much. It's so obvious to people that we've gone ahead and we've taken the same email and sent it out to 200 folks. Really, really try and avoid doing that. And the do list, clearly articulate what it is that you speak about. If it's not clear in just a few short sentences what it is, what your value proposition is, what topic you speak about, what kind of problems you solve, then take a stop, pause, delete it, and start from scratch. There's this great saying that says, it's like the brand swap test. If you can go ahead and you can take a brand and you can swap one name out and put the competitor's brand in there, then the description of your brand is not unique enough. It's not clear enough. So make sure that when you do it, it stands out. Everyone understands that why you're special, why you're different, and what it is that you speak about. In this business, there requires a lot of patience, and to expect an outreach to automatically turn into a booking is pretty much something that's a falsehood. I can't say it's never going to happen. Sometimes you get lucky, you outreach, the Bureau needs a speaker on that topic and a date that's coming up soon, and it works out great. And when those are the case, in that case, awesome. But most of the time, it's like any quality relationship. The relationships that bear fruit in your personal life and your professional life are built over not just weeks and months, but are often built over years. They have mutual understanding, and there's give and take and shared values and all these sorts of things. And so going ahead and sending an email out to a Bureau or making one quick introduction and then wondering why it hasn't turned into something beneficial is just like any other relationship in your life. It does take time, and you need patience, and all good businesses require repeating the same thing over and over and over again until you get the result and you get the kind of the benefit of all that activity. Do you provide the recipient with some sort of value? It's doing that? Okay. Do you provide the recipient with some sort of value? Just to go out and not give them anything directly, but rather just share what it's all about me, or here's what I do as a speaker, but not give anything back is not a really strong position. Perhaps you've written an article recently that is awesome. Perhaps there's a book that you're working on that you can share a pre-advanced copy of. Perhaps there's an article that you read that you think would apply to their business. One thing we do, we're often trying to give bureaus, kind of using our philosophy about innovation and creativity and disruption and reinvention and entrepreneurship and all the things that we're so passionate about. We go ahead and we share that information as it relates to building a speaker bureau business. We have this thing that goes out called the Bureau Beat that we send out every single month to all the bureau contacts that we have. And it's nothing about what I do. It's nothing about what Josh does. It's all about things that we've learned over the past month and years that we think could be applied to a speaker bureau business just to help them. And so we're always trying to give back more than we're able to get in a transaction or in a relationship with the bureau. And I would encourage everyone to kind of do the same thing. Don't talk to a bureau professional as if they are your buddy. There's really a couple things here. First of all, this is a new professional relationship. So you want to treat it like that, just like you would treat any professional business relationship, with respect and courtesy and a little bit of formality to it. At the same time, you want to make sure that you're talking to the person, even though you're being courteous and respectful, at the same level that you're at. So you don't want to be looking up to someone like, that they're up on Mount High and you're this little person, and you certainly don't want to be looking down to them. But just like any positive relationship in your life, it's got to be at the same level. You do want to explain why you're a good fit for a particular bureau. Connor's looking at me because this mic is making noise, so I apologize for that. So, for example, you can look pretty quickly on a bureau site and understand, who they work with, the kind of speakers they might focus on, some of their marquee clients. You do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and just doing simple web searches. But if you find a client that does really well with fintech, financial technology, type companies, and that's something that's a strong suit for you. Or you see someone who does a lot of CPG type work, consumer packaged goods, and that's something that you're familiar with, you have a background in. Well, then go ahead and share that, because that's an opportunity to work with a bureau where you're aligned, you have the same philosophies, you have similar types of clients, you may have overlapping relationships. You might be able to share business with them just like they share business with you. So go ahead and focus on that bureau and figure out how you connect directly with them and not just sort of in a generic way. Don't overdo your email signature. Stick to key credibility drivers. Sometimes you'll see an email signature for someone, it's just got so much stuff. It has, all the obvious name, title, address, mailing address, fax number, 75 phone numbers, and then it's got like 19 logos of every professional association they're in and every advanced degree and certification they have. And I would really recommend that people just pick a few that you think really are important and are key to who you are and what you offer to a bureau or to a client looking to hire you. There's this comment about what do you put in an introduction to a speech? And I would say that the same thing applies here. So someone who is new and doesn't have a lot of credibility or experience in this industry tends to write an introduction that's very, very long. Jordan Bro did this and that. He went to this university. He has this degree, he has this certification. He worked here for 5 years and here for 6 years, and then traveled Africa or whatever it is, and have all this stuff. When you introduce Barack Obama, you don't say, "Oh, Barack Obama was born in Hawaii, and he did this and that, and he grew up as a community organizer, and he was." It just doesn't happen. You just say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President," and it takes care of itself. So we obviously we don't have those kind of credibility, so we can't be quite that short. But there's a balance between of something that's really, really long, that needs a lot of explanation, and someone who's already been there, done it, and can be short. And so I would encourage that approach, that ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, or Mrs. President approach to your email signatures. Next, do realize bureaus don't need just another speaker. They need another book gig or client, and provide them a pathway for this. So I learned this lesson the hard way from a gentleman named Seth Deckman, who is at the Speaker Agency out in California. Depending upon which boot camp you're at, if you met a gentleman named Matt Sullivan, Matt works with Seth kind of in this area, but they're both work together at the Speaker Agency. So it's his business partner. And one time I was talking to him about a speaker, and he kind of interrupts me and he says, "Jordan, I don't think you understand the business we're in. You're calling me and telling me about this great new speaker. I don't need another speaker. What I need is another client." And I paused for a second, and it hit me, and I realized that I was not speaking to him in a way that was being helpful. I wasn't adding value and contributing really in a meaningful way at all. So one thing you can do is make sure that the value is a two-way exchange. So if you're looking for a bureau to go ahead and represent you and to go ahead and include you in what it is they do, to list you on their site, to make introductions to clients, to call you back and take you seriously and really try to build that relationship, it's got to go both ways. And so this can be some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, about whether it's articles or advice, but perhaps it's another book gig. Perhaps you know someone who you've spoken to before, who may not want to hire you again, but would be a good introduction for that bureau, especially when you're trying to line up with a specific bureau, if you find one that's in the right industry. So you got a bureau that does a lot of stuff with manufacturing, someone that's a senior manufacturing role that hires speakers, go ahead and make that introduction. Then there's that famous trick that we've talked about before, where you've landed a speech, it's a direct deal, you did all the hard work yourself, you call up that bureau who you don't really have a relationship with, and you say, "Hey, I have a deal I'd like to work through you and have you manage and handle and pay you commission." And of course, you're going to get a quick call back from that, and someone who's open to building a relationship when there's dollars involved. So make sure that it goes both ways. Don't send an email with typos, conflicting fonts, lack of capitalization, and no next steps. It is always surprising to us how often this happens. You think it goes without saying, like just to proofread your email or to go ahead and write it and check it in an hour when the text looks a lot fresher. But it's really, really important. You get that one chance to make a first impression. And if the email is sloppy and it's missing punctuation, that obviously doesn't go very far. It kind of says to the bureau, well, if they're this sloppy about how they reach out to me, I wonder how sloppy they are going to be when they're on a kickoff call with a client, or worse, when they're out on stage. Because of that, if that speech doesn't go well, they lose a client for that event that they do every year, if not multiple times a year. It's not just one time like it is for the speaker. So taking that stuff seriously, there's all kinds of tricks. A lot of to make sure that copy gets pasted correctly into emails, especially if you're using a portion of a template and you're customizing it. So just pasting it might look fine on your screen, but when someone opens it up in a different format, you're using Outlook, they're using Gmail on a browser, and it's just not going to look the same. So there's all kinds of things you can look up online that will help you that, pasting things without formatting and just plain text and just all kinds of hacks. But go ahead and send it to 4 of your friends or other business associates. Make sure they can see it okay before you go ahead and send that to a client. And also make sure there's a call to action, that there's next steps. So you're not just going ahead and sending information that has all kinds of stuff about you, but doesn't take it anywhere, doesn't have anything that can be done with it. You know, there's no, hey, why don't we get together and have lunch, or I'd love to schedule a call, or if this sounds interesting to you, let me know and I'll show you the article I kind of teased out here. But have something so there's some response and something that's going to happen as a result of it, instead of just a bunch of information kind of thrown at them. Do share key credibility drivers that make you different. This is another good example of that brand swap test, where you know, if you go ahead and list these things that make you credible and different, and then you can go ahead and put another speaker's name in there, you really have a problem. So you want to go ahead and do that and figure out how to continue to craft them to make sure that they stand out and they're unique. Use other speakers that are on this call or you met at boot camp as an audience. We're, of course, always happy to take a look at that. So send that to anybody at Three Ring Circus, or all of us at us@threeringcircus.com, and we'll be happy to give you our thoughts and share. Also, the bullet point list of stuff that you do, go ahead and Google that. Just literally copy and paste it and see if the thing that you came up with in your head exists for anybody else. And if it does, then somebody else probably already owns that, and you need to go ahead and figure out how you're going to modify it or tweak it or change it to make it really your own. Don't always expect a response, and if no response, keep on pinging them. So you got to be careful here, because first of all, we're all super busy. Everyone gets a lot of emails. So sometimes when a bureau's in the middle of closing 3 deals and they get a bunch of emails from speakers who they don't know yet, they might not respond, or they certainly might not respond very quickly. That's okay. Just be patient. Go ahead and send them something different and new and unique coming up in a few weeks. Don't keep responding to the same thing with, hey, did you get my note? Can you get back to me? I left you a voicemail. What's the story? But go ahead and use different methods to get in touch with them. Go ahead and send them different kinds of content. Go ahead and mail them something. Perhaps leave them a voicemail or send them a video type message. But just be patient and ping them with different kinds of content, not always the same exact thing. Do provide a handful of high-profile key clients and testimonials. That's third-party credibility thing goes really, really far. There's probably some clients that you've worked with. Maybe you haven't even worked with them in a professional speaking capacity per se, but you did some consulting work with something that's similar that you'd be comfortable using their logo for. Or there's testimonials that you can get from other business executives of what it's like to work with you. Again, even if it's not from you standing up on stage in front of a huge audience, but it's still representative of the kind of work you've done. As long as it's accurate, it's fine to go ahead and share that, because no one's going to want to take sort of that first chance for someone who hasn't worked with a client at the caliber that the bureau may represent. Never approach a conversation with a sense of entitlement. I see speakers from time to time just get frustrated. They're like, "Look, you don't know who I am. I've done all these great, wonderful things in my life, and you're not paying attention to me." Well, that just never works, and obviously turns people off right away. One cool thing about being in a bureau, especially a more successful, larger bureau, is you get to meet amazing people. They work with really smart scientists and incredibly accomplished artists and great business people and nonprofit leaders and sports stars and celebrities and politicians. And so when someone shows up, no matter how good their credibility are, you may have been an astronaut or done some awesome stuff, they talk to awesome people all day long. And that's part of the cool reason why they're in this business sometimes. So remember that, and remember that you're not only not going to stand out in the way that you might in other areas of life. And so don't necessarily act like you're entitled. Kind of be patient and work through it. And eventually, if you do all the right things, you'll get that response from the bureau. Do start small. Don't contact 100 bureaus at once. So there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, it's a lot easier to get in touch with and build a relationship and make progress with a smaller bureau than it is necessarily for a larger bureau. So sure, a larger bureau like Washington Speakers Bureau, if you reach out to them, might respond with an email, but it's likely the same email that they send out to dozens, if not hundreds of people every single week. And to go stand out in that situation is a little tougher. It's easier to start with a smaller bureau, someone who might just be one person and an assistant, or a group of 4 or 5 people. many times these people do awesome work for awesome clients. There's a gentleman I can think of in Atlanta who we've worked with. He's one person. He literally works in his basement, and he does a ton of business with SAP. We've probably delivered 15 SAP speeches over the last decade, and we just did another one recently this year for him for an SAP executive that's no longer at SAP. If you saw this, you saw online, you wouldn't necessarily think that that was the case, but we find that there's surprises like that all the time. So go ahead and start with a small bureau and learn from it. There's definitely, as part of the dialogue, when you actually go get to meet these people and you get on the phone and they start firing questions at you, and you like 2 of your answers, but you don't really like 2 of the other ones, it gives you an opportunity to go ahead and tweak those and improve them for the next time. All gets back to, you only get one chance at a first impression. So if you're going to kind of screw up and make some mistakes in the first impression, let's make it with someone where there isn't that big of a downside if you don't do well, or they might be more forgiving and understanding. And then you kind of get to those middle-sized bureaus, someone with 20, 30 employees, and then all the way up to the leading authorities and the Harry Walkers and the Washington Speakers Bureaus and those size organizations. Don't tell your friends your entire life story, or don't tell your entire life story in a single email. Nobody is going to read a 17-paragraph scrolling forever everything you've done since nursery school thing with your personal stories, and it's just way too much. It's like 2 or 3 very key, clear bullet points about what you do, what you speak about, and why you're different, how you can solve their problems. And that language needs to be tight. Like, you go over it and over and over it, share it with again, with coworkers and friends, and make sure that whatever is in there is exactly targeted and just right to the point. We often talk about how we tell stories, and sometimes when we hop on stage and giving a speech, that story we tell for the first time might take 9 minutes. And the next time it takes 7.5 minutes, and then it takes 6 minutes, and then it takes 5 minutes. And before you know it, that 9-minute story is like 3.5 minutes every single time. And it's because we've gotten better at telling that story. We've removed words, we've put our inflection in a different spot, and it just continues to improve. Well, that same thing goes on through writing an email that's an introduction to someone, or leaving a voicemail, or having that initial bureau conversation. So make sure that it's short and concise, and take your time. There's that, I think it's that Mark Twain quote that says, "I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one." That totally applies in this instance. Do build deeper relationships with fewer speaker bureaus. So the relationships of bureaus that are most successful, and the ones that last over a long period of time and are fruitful, are ones that are deep. They're places that if you've been multiple times, these agents have been out to see you speak. You know about their families, your friends on your personal Facebook page. You have a texting relationship with them. They go to you when they have a problem and they need a speaker late at night or over the weekend. You're the first person they think of. Or if you need some guidance and you have a business problem, you're trying to think about, should I raise my fee or not? You can call up your friend at Leading Authorities and say, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking for next year. Tell me what you think. Do you think I'm being too aggressive? Should I wait? Is this a good idea? Should I go higher?" That's what you're looking for. And so go ahead and take the time investment in building a real deep relationship with fewer people rather than a superficial one with many more. And then over time, you can continue to add to that and add to that and add to that until you have many deep relationships. Don't exclusively reach out via email and expect to stand out. So email is obviously just one modality, just one way to reach out. It's easy. We all do it all the time, and there's nothing wrong with it. I leverage email personally more than any other tool times 10. But the other things are just as important, whether it's certainly meeting in person, but leaving voicemails, talking over the phone, video messages are just great. Sharing information, even if it's via email, but sharing information where it's just an article that might be relevant to them. Or sending them something, an early copy of a new book, or a new book that you just got, or a book from someone else that you said, "Hey, this is something I found really interesting on this topic. I thought it might be helpful to you." Or a gift, or a holiday gift that's unique to your brand and very specific, which we've talked about many times. So whatever it is, email is very cool, but just email is only one thing. So be sure to leverage all the different options that you have. Do provide a clear next step. We talked about this a little bit also, but making sure that at the end of the communication, if it is in an email or really other things, that they know what to do. Where's it going from here? Don't just kind of leave it hanging. Like, here's 2 paragraphs about me. Thanks so much. Like, if you're not going to ask them to do something, or there's no call to action, it's less likely that you're going to get an action out of it. Don't reach out before having a rock star website and video. So again, one chance to make a first impression. No one is going to take you seriously unless you have a quality video. That's the single most important thing. They have to see the product. Meeting planners want to hire speakers where they know what they're getting, and they've either seen them in person, or much, much more likely they've seen a video of them speaking. So please go ahead and make that investment of time and probably dollars as well to go get good clips and go ahead and edit them the right way, and Find a good partner. We obviously help many of you with that, which we're always happy to do, but there's other great people out there as well. Regardless, make sure that you find someone like that. And same thing with a website, which is probably the second most important thing that you can have. Looking like you took some time and it was serious. Even if it's a simple site, even if it's clean and simple with just some key things on it, that's way better than having a long site that's junky and out-of-date copy and breaks, and you can't, when someone loads on their mobile phone and doesn't load right, all that stuff that seems sometimes insignificant and small is like the biggest deal ever. And you just lose to other people in those situations when you're not prepared. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this. Before I do, just a quick reminder, if you want this list, just go ahead and shoot me an email, jordan@threeringcircus.com, or Jordan at one of the other bunch of domains that we have. Any of them will get to me, and I'll be happy to go ahead and send you a PDF of this so you can kind of stick it up on your wall or take a look and review it. But that's our quick list of the do's and don'ts in building relationships with speakers bureaus based on what we've learned and we've done well, and certainly what we've screwed up, and also what we've seen other people do, both do well and make mistakes doing. So any questions, anything we can answer on any of those? Any experiences any of you have with reaching out to bureaus that have gone well and not well, and lessons that you've learned?
Jordan, when you guys are going to let's say you're going to Seattle and there's a bureau there that you really want to get in front of, how often has it worked where you've said, hey, Josh is speaking over here, like, do you want to come see me? Does that work or no?
It does work. It doesn't always work because while that's more unique of a proposition than, hey, here's my email, I've left you 10 voicemails, call me back. Here's something really special and unique about it. But it does have a greater result. A lot of bureaus love seeing speakers in person because while the video is really cool, if you're in their area and they can drive 10 miles to go see you at a huge convention center or see you at a hotel speak, great. Another awesome opportunity when that happens is if it's a client that you didn't book through a bureau. So say it was a direct booking and you're out in Seattle and there's someone from a bureau in Seattle you want to meet, you go ahead, you call them, you go introduce yourself and say, hey, I have a client. I'm going to deliver a speech to 400 people in this really cool ballroom. And I worked with them directly. I would love to introduce you to them. Have you ever worked with them before? So now they're getting a personal introduction to a client. If you do well, I mean, it's just a bunch of wins for just a little investment of time on the part of the bureau. So we see that being a very successful technique, Alicia.
So Jordan, some of the Speakers Bureau folks that were at our three-ring circus, aloof is not the wrong word, but they implied pretty directly that don't expect to call and get to them. And I know you had a certain level or caliber of people. When you're talking about building these personal relationships, is it academic who you start building it with? Whoever answers, what you're lucky enough to get?
Yeah, I think it goes into some of the things that I mentioned. So first of all, making sure that you're ready for that. So a lot of the bureaus get, people that reach out to them. They're like, hey, I'm starting to speak more. I'd love to get to know you and work with you. And the challenge is they don't have a video. They don't have a website. It's many of the things on the list that we went through. They're just not ready. They're kind of blending in with everybody else, and their time's precious and so on. So when it's the time to reach out and you could say, hey, to whomever it is that you may have met, you can remind them of that, but you're also able to go ahead and share, here's my new site, here's my new topics, here's a new video I just released. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods speaking to so-and-so. I'd love to make an introduction, like Alicia said, to our client. And then when you kind of come at them with all these different things, we find that you're much more likely to get a reaction or get a positive response than just kind of reaching out after boot camp when you're not really quite ready to do that. Yeah. And to some degree, they're saying that as much as they want to participate in boot camp, they're just like us. There's only so much time, and they're being somewhat protective of that by going ahead and saying that.
Hey, Jordan, I have a question. Where do we meet? Where do these people hang out? If you're the agent, the sales agent at the Speakers Bureau, the account executive, does that person go to events that we as speakers could attend and then meet them person to person that way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a few things that do stick out. There's something called the National Speakers Association, which a handful of them do attend. I was at the most recent large conference that goes on in the summer, and there's also a winter conference, but they go to that. They also, the International Association of Speakers Bureaus, that group of board members, they meet remotely every single month, except 3 times a year where they meet in person. 2 of those times is at an NSA meeting. So you know that they're going to be there. If you look at who's on the board, if you go to iasbweb.org, you'll see who's on the board. You'll see you'll be at each of those meetings. Also for IASB, there's opportunities to potentially speak there. So you can go to that website and you'll see applications to speak at the coming year's conference, which is a great way to go ahead and meet people and participate. We were able to do that for the first time, I want to say it was 4 years ago now, and we went to Seattle, and Josh was able to deliver a keynote, and we got to hang out for a couple hours after and have drinks with a bunch of people. So that was positive. There are also sponsorship opportunities. So for the first time at Three Ring Circus, we sponsored IASB, and when we were there were a couple speakers who also sponsored. So they had a booth and they got an opportunity to talk to everybody, and they really got to hang out for most of the conference and go to dinners and what have you. And it never occurred to me, but it seemed like I'm sure it's not terribly expensive either. It's a few $1,000s to exhibit, but that's not a bad move. Like, I can't imagine walking away from that event and not landing something. Also, there's a couple other things which I really haven't been to, or I haven't been to in this industry or while working in the speaking business. There's something called MPI, Meeting Planners International, which is the largest association of meeting planners anywhere. And there's another one too, the name escapes me, that's smaller, but MPI is by far the biggest one. I've never been. I don't know if there's good opportunities there. I do know that some bureaus do go, so perhaps that's something worth checking out. The membership is not very expensive. I want to say like the low end memberships maybe $250 a year for something like that, and then there's opportunities to go to this event and perhaps run into them. Those are the main ones that I would consider or be thinking about. Great. Any other questions on this or anything else?
Hey, Jordan. Josh Schneider.
Hey, Josh.
So I've been having a couple. One in particular, Bureau keeps reaching out, asking. It's a smaller one. I've never really heard of them, but kind of started off. Somebody asked him to put me on their proposal, and then since then, he pings me a couple of times. And it seems like it goes into this black hole. So is there like I'm trying to be respectful of the relationship. Obviously there's a little bit of equity since somebody requested my information through him. Just a following up and kind of like an idea on how you build that relationship.
Yeah. And it is tricky. There's some art to it, but there also is, you'll notice a difference between different bureaus and different personalities. You have some bureaus who go ahead and, hold every date they ever could imagine. So before a client reaches out or they're proactively pitching something, and they want to make sure 5 dates are okay before they ever even suggest your name to a client, let alone share what you're about or share a video or any details. You have other people who just don't even do that. Like, unless there's an offer in their hand or they're really close to it, they never even ask. So it's hard to tell sometimes based on how a bureau operates until you've kind of learned that and learned their personalities, what an outreach might mean. One suggestion is when a bureau reaches out and they say, hey, I want to check, Josh, if you're available for such and such a date for such and such a client in such and such a city, or even just an industry. Whatever information you can get like that, if either in that email or if they don't offer it by asking, I would recommend going ahead and writing the response as if you're them. And so going ahead and saying to this bureau, hi, Sarah, thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm available on this date. I'd be happy to hold it. I have a lot of experience in this area and can really make a difference and contribute and hope to win this one together. If it's all right with you, I've put together some thoughts on how if the person had come to me directly, how I might respond. Feel free to go ahead and forward this directly. Feel free to put your name on it. Feel free to cut and paste. And then I would include relevant things in your background, a couple testimonials or relevant work, some client logos or names, perhaps a speaking topic that might be good. Or as we've shared, just do a quick, simple video. It can certainly be fancy, but it doesn't need to. Sometimes the simple stuff in front of an iPhone works just great. Just go ahead and record something, put it on your desk, go ahead and send that. They can choose to send it or not, even if they don't send it. Even if they're reaching out to you early for an opportunity that isn't that robust, it shows to the bureau that how much you care and how much passion you have behind it, what kind of effort you're going to go into winning business and partnering with them, being super responsive, letting them know that, hey, this is the kind of work I do for free without anyone even reaching out. Wait till we actually have a deal together. I'll blow your client away and blow you away with the kind of commitment that I make. So those are just a few things that we've done that we've seen work with certain bureaus. But I do understand, and it can be frustrating sometimes when someone reaches out and you can't get through. Be happy to talk about too after this webinar if you want to jump on a call and talk about who that is. I don't know that I know them, but if I do, I'd be happy to give you my thoughts on my experience with them if we haven't.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan.
Sure. Great. Any other questions? All right, good. Any questions on anything else? Anything else going on in your world and your interactions, whether it be with bureaus or anything else in the speaking world that we can talk about or you want to share or we can help with? Can be good news, struggling news, frustrating news, whatever it is. All right. Well, I won't take any more time for everybody. I know we're all super busy, but hopefully this do's and don'ts list for bureaus was very valuable. Like I said, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll quickly respond with a PDF so you can have a copy that you can put by your computer or keep on your mobile phone and refer to. And intent is that it's helpful in growing bureau relationships over time as we continue each to work to grow our speaking businesses. So good seeing everybody. I know I'll see some of you coming up soon here in Detroit, and have a great rest of the week.
See you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.